Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the August 28th, 2024 meeting of the Fond du Lac City Council. The first item of business is roll call, which is done electronically, and I will declare a quorum is present. The next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, which is followed by a moment of silent reflection. Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Next on our agenda is public hearings, and we have none, so we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda finalizes the proposed actions for the meeting. A, August 14th, 2024 minutes, and B, list of claims dated August 21st, 2024. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion to approve. Second. Motion by Mr. Godfrey and second by Mr. Heisler. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is audience comments. Agenda and non-agenda items. The presiding officer will limit speaking time for non-agenda items to 1 minute and items noticed on the agenda to 5 minutes. Ms. Hefter, do we have anyone wishing to speak? And we do have a couple. So first we will have Laura DeGollier, who wishes to speak on the Greenway Arboretum. And you will have 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to say thank you to the city staff of the Parks Department who worked with us very well this last week. It was a real pleasure to work with them. We had to reroute trail, and I could not do that by hand, nor did I have the volunteers. So Jeff White came in with his backhoe and did a great job. And John Redmond helped coordinate everything, so thanks to both of them and the whole department. Their cooperation with them is just awesome. The volunteers that I'd like to thank, we have Joe Ditter, who helps with the stonework and all kinds of other great ideas. Jay Gross, who helps with chainsawing. Scott, who puts all those chips down. So if you enjoy the trails, thanks, Scott. Peter Grimm, who provides the baskets for all the trees, and we're finding more and more oaks out there all the time. We're way over 100 now. And Jim Dunphy, who does the mowing of the trails in the summertime to keep the path through the prairie open. To the city residents and visitors, please get out and enjoy. It's 1.5 miles of trails from prairies to river to woodland on 24.5 acres. And thank you for the city for allowing me to work with it for all these years.
Thank you so much. And then we have Steve Ave. Would you like to speak? I know you weren't sure. Yes? Okay. And it will be a non-agenda item, so you'll have 1 minute.
Actually, I was hoping I could be towards the end of the meeting, so for now, it's probably going to take more than 1 minute for what I've got to say. So I'll wait a couple of weeks and have a good night.
Well, thank you so much. And with that, that ends our audience comments. Next, we'll move on to our action items. Action item A is resolution number 9138, a resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $14 million general obligation promissory notes, series 2024A. Introduction is by our Director of Administration, Ms. Davey, and Justin Fisher, Director of Public Finance, Robert W. Baird and Company.
Thank you. So it's the time of year when we move forward with our borrowing for the money that we need for our 2024 projects. So Maggie, if you can pull up Justin's presentation, and I will turn it over to Justin, and he will walk through the next 3 resolutions.
Thanks, Tricia. So good evening, everyone. It's great to see everyone. So I handed out a presentation packet. I'll kind of walk through it and ask any questions if they come up. What I'll kind of walk through is I'll give a quick market update of what's been going on in the municipal bond world. We'll talk about the financing structures, timeline, and then we'll go through the detailed financing illustrations. So a quick market update. The last several months have been very volatile in the marketplace. I mean, you see it on the news with the stock market going up and down, but also interest rates, fluctuating pretty dramatically. Over the last couple of weeks, it's been a little bit less volatile after the Fed came out and said that September is probably going to be the time when they make that first rate cut. Even though they've been talking about it for a very long time, the expectation is that September is the time. So that actually, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen interest rates come down, which is good to be talking about this financing right now. So, that's going to be, the expectation is a rate cut, and if they don't do that, then we'll see interest rates potentially shoot up if they don't do it. So the expectation is right now that they will, and so we're trying to time it to get ahead of that meeting in mid-September. So going through the presentation packet, the three financings that we're going to be talking about tonight. The first one is the estimated borrowing amount of $13,800,000. This is going to be for your capital improvement projects and general obligation promissory notes to fund the 2024 CIP. This is a 10-year financing with maturities March 1, 2025 to 2034. First interest being March 1 of 2025 and callable September 1, 2031 or any date thereafter. So on that particular day, you could look at refinancing or paying off that debt. The estimated interest rate is a 4.25%, and the not-to-exceed parameter rate would be a 4.75%. Now, throughout all three of these, we, as you've seen in the past, we use conservative interest rates for planning purposes, and ideally, when we go out to the market and receive the rate, it comes in much better than what we're projecting. And I anticipate that being the case with these three financings as well. The next issuance would be a waterworks system revenue bond. So this is specifically going to be paid for by the water utility. So not put on the general levy. It's going to be specifically paid from water utility revenues. It's going to fund the 2024 and 2025 capital projects, maturing September 1, 2027 to 2039. First interest, March 1, 2025, and again, callable September 1, 2031, or any date thereafter. A little bit longer structure, so a little bit higher interest rate at a 4.5% and a not to exceed 5%. Now, the reason why we're combining the 24-25 capital projects together into one financing is a little bit for a couple of reasons. One, that the city, there's a limited number of projects for those capital items versus the capital for the levy-supported projects, the general obligation promissory notes. Two, short-term interest rates are very attractive right now. I think Tricia can attest that she's probably earning a good amount on her investment income right now. And so right now, if we're jumping into the marketplace, we actually probably can get a rate that's potentially lower than what you're going to be able to invest those funds at, if it takes some time to start spending those down. You also have 2 years to spend down that money from the bond proceeds. So you've got time. And so that's kind of the thought process there, and consolidate the financings into one versus doing another financing come next year. So kind of consolidating those pieces. And then the last financing is a $21,920,000 sewer system revenue bond. So again, paying from the sewer utilities to fund these projects. And this would be for the 24-25. These maturities would be 10-year financing, May 1, 2026 to 34. First payment, May 1 of 2025, and callable November 1, 2031, or any date thereafter. Interest rate 4.25% with a not to exceed 4.75%. So going to page 3, I'll run through the timeline. So council would consider the plan of finance and adopt the parameters resolutions tonight. This essentially gives like I said, a not to exceed interest rate. So if something were to happen between now and when we would jump in the market, that's where I would want to get in front of you and say, here's what's going on in the marketplace. Here's maybe it makes sense to hold off for a little while, et cetera. But I don't anticipate that being the case in this situation, as I anticipate rates to stay where they are, or hopefully even come down just a pinch here. So assuming all goes well, we potentially are going to be jumping into the market here in early September. We've already gone through we've already got the offering documents put together. And again, these are documents that contain all the financial information about the city that a potential buyer of your municipal bonds would want to evaluate. We've gone through the bond rating calls with Standard & Poor's, where Tricia, myself, Diane, and many others participated on this call, where we essentially talked to Standard & Poor's about the credit of the city. Again, talking about the financials, what community development's going on, and so forth. And ultimately, they went to their committee and affirmed, we just found out today, that the city's bond rating for the general obligation was affirmed the AA-, which is excellent news. The water was affirmed the A rating, and the sewer was affirmed, or was given the A+ rating. So all what was expected, the sewer came in a little bit better than I even anticipated, so that's good news, because the better the bond credit rating, the lower the interest rate you're going to receive in the marketplace. So that was all good news there. And then the anticipated closing would be October 3rd of 2024. Going to the next page, this is the detailed financing illustration for the general obligation promissory notes. So again, a 10-year financing structure. The left side of the page, that's your existing debt payments on an annual basis. So that's what you've borrowed for in the past, and that's your annual payments that you owe on that debt. The middle of the page is what we're talking about today. And then the right side of the page is the combined debt service after the financing would be complete, using the estimated rate of 4.25%. Again, this is kind of the long-term plan. You know, Tricia and myself, we continue to look at this. We look at the 5-year CIP. We model out how things look, and you know, that's just a constant change. As you know, everyone knows though that 5-year CIP does change here and there, but we absolutely are looking at that continually. Going to page 5. For those that don't know, municipalities are allowed to borrow up to 5% of your equalized valuation, so it's something that we're very cognizant of and paying attention to. If you look at this graph here, the black is what we just kind of talked about. That's the existing debt for under the general obligation basis for the city. So you can see over time that's being paid down. That's just you paying down your principal year over year. The blue is what we're talking about tonight, so that was layered in. The gray is what you have as remaining borrowing capacity. So you can see that you've got 56% remaining capacity even after this financing, and then you can see how it grows over time. Obviously, you know, as you continue to fund capital projects and investments for the community, that gets eaten up, but you know, this is all kind of layered in. And so if you think about where you've been in the past to where you are today, you've been very consistently staying at 50+% capacity year over year, which is good. You're paying down your debt while getting, you know, investments done for your community. So that's a good thing there. So you're in good shape. Going to the next page. This is the water system long-term financing plan. So again, left side of the page, that's your existing water revenue debt. You can see that you've got a nice drop in debt service starting in 2028 and then another one in 2030. So, you know, that's been kind of in the mix of our long-term planning for a long time here. And then when you go to the right of that, that's the financing that we're talking about for $9,540,000. Now, there's also a potential for a clean water fund loan later down the road at some point, so we wanted to layer that in to see ultimately what the right side of the page is, which is the debt service coverage ratio. And what we've kind of talked about this in the past, but what we look at is the water utility specifically. You know, what are the net revenues, or what are the gross revenues, what are the operations and maintenance, and ultimately what does that leave for a net revenue amount that is able to pay debt service on an annual basis. So that's where that $8,629,000 comes into play. There's also a pilot payment that goes out, so we need to account for that just for our sense. But from a bond covenant standpoint, you can see what the debt service coverage ratio looks like on the far right side. And kind of a parameter there is you want to always stay at least 1.25 times coverage. And you can see here that you're above that coverage ratio, so we're in good shape financially from that perspective as well. So we're all good. And the city's done a great job increasing their liquidity, and that's been noted by Standard & Poor's as well. So that's good. The next page, page 7, this is the sewer system long-term financing plan, same situation. Left side, that's your existing payments. You got a nice drop in the debt service starting in 2026 to be able to fund these larger capital items that everyone has been talking about. So the part that we're talking about is the $21.92 million, and that's going to fund the majority of the equipment-related projects for 2024 and 2025. And then the city's been working on a clean water fund for the actual building portion of the projects, because that's going to be amortized over 20 years. So you can see that being layered in, and then the far right side of the page, that coverage ratio is above 1.6 times. So that gives everyone comfort that you've got enough revenues to be able to pay that future debt when it comes on. So all good news there. So with that being said, I'll entertain any questions. Otherwise, yeah, we're in good shape.
Well, thank you so much for that very thorough explanation. And are there any questions for Mr. Fisher or Ms. Davy? Mr. Schisler.
Madam President, if we were to, that 56% capacity, if we were to increase that over, would even do a better job, I guess you could say, of borrowing less money, would our bond rating improve, or?
No, no, it wouldn't. Because ultimately, the bond rating looks at many different factors. That's part of it. Now, if you had zero debt, then you wouldn't have a bond rating. But, you reduce that, that helps out a small portion. That portion is only worth 10% of the rating, is your general obligation debt amount. The main factors are your demographics, how fast you're amortizing this debt, your fund balance. Fund balance is one of the main drivers. So, if you increase this amount dramatically, are you going to see an uptick in your rating? Maybe, but it's not going to be the main driver. If you were to increase your fund balance, for instance, that would be a bigger driver.
And to borrow $14 million general obligation, can you describe maybe in general terms what the transactional costs are for doing that, to get that done?
Yeah, I would say it's typically around that 1 and 1.5% type range to get the financing done in the open market.
And that includes bond counsel, legal?
Everything, yeah. Yep.
And the last question is maybe for Tricia. Well, we have this money. You mentioned the 2-year period that the law allows. Do we have opportunities to get a CD, or are we pretty much stuck with savings account interest rates? Or?
We have certain things that we can invest in, so we do have some money just in like a general checking account for our day-to-day operations, and then we do have some funds in longer-term investments with U.S. Treasuries and securities.
What kind of interest rates now, or the range, if you?
The range of those are anywhere from 3.2% all the way up to like 4.5% to almost 5% on some of those.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Mullen and second by Mr. Schisler. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to resolution number 9139, a resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $22,300,000 sewerage system revenue bonds, Series 2024, and providing for the payment of the bonds and other details with respect to the bonds. Again, our introduction is by Ms. Davy and Mr. Fisher, although I don't expect you have anything more to add to that.
Correct. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from council on this resolution? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Schisler and second by Ms. Leering. Sorry, we already had a second. We'll get you in the next one. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Next, we have resolution number 9140, a resolution supplementing resolution number 4350, authorizing the issuance and establishment parameters for the sale of not to exceed $9,750,000 waterworks system revenue bonds, Series 2024, and providing for the payment of such bonds and other details and covenants with respect thereto. Again, we have our introduction by Ms. Davy and Mr. Fisher.
Same thing. Any questions? Happy to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Godfrey and second by Mr. Mullen. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Good job.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll move on to ordinance number 3797, an ordinance amending Chapter 720 zoning, Article 2 definitions, Article 6 residential districts, veterinary clinic, Article 9 special use permits, private lodge or club, Schedule 3 bulk requirements, residential districts of the Code of the City of Fond du Lac. And our introduction is by our Community Development Director, Ms. Benson.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brault. As you're aware, from time to time, we like to review our zoning code and make some changes. So in regards to the veterinary clinic, that was just a matter as during part of the some zoning code changes, we inadvertently eliminated the within 200 feet of a residential district. It's not our intention to allow veterinary clinics in a residential district, but in order to clarify when they're near a residential district. So that's what that language is about. The next one is in regards to residential districts. So one of the things, this is one of the many zoning code changes you'll probably see over the next probably several months as we look at our housing study and the strategic plan and those recommendations come forth. But one of the things we did hear from some of our developer partners is taking a look at what our lot size is. So in the attached bulk requirements, you'll see that we've reduced the minimum lot size requirement. And this creates a little bit more flexibility. And again, it's just the minimum. Developers certainly have the ability to go larger if that's their choice for whatever desire that they're looking for their subdivision. So it just creates a minimum. And we took a look at what some of our other lots are, and that's how we worked at that size. We also looked at what other communities in our comparable size look at, and so we're in line with those. And then finally is the clubs and lodges. So under our zoning code, we allowed for clubs and lodges. The intent of that was for fraternal organizations like the Elks, the Eagles, and others. The language was a little bit vague, and so we needed to clarify that to tighten up a little bit of misperception or perhaps misunderstanding of the intent of the private clubs. So we clarified a definition for the spirit intent, and then also clarified where those types of uses are appropriate. Our existing fraternal organizations would not be negatively impacted by this clarification, and it only applies to those going forward. So we clarified our definition, and then we also created a special use permit, which again allows them in a district, but just at another additional level of review.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, I'll entertain, oh, sorry, Mr. Schisler.
Comment that reducing the minimum lot size is a big deal for encouraging housing, and one of those things that we can do that don't cost the city any money. Important. So, like in the memo, like you said, we can only deal with these things piece by piece, incrementally, and that's what we're doing with that. And then I had a question for Ms. Hoffman. With the clubs, does the Department of Revenue excuse clubs from having to get a liquor license?
No?
They have to get a liquor license. What did we have come up where somebody switched from having a tavern to going to a club, and then they didn't have to come to us for, can you explain what that was about? And
I think that one is not. Truthfully, it's going to be interesting, and when we make this code change, there'll be additional things that will come after that. So I guess I don't really want to, and it may become litigation, so I really don't want to go into a lot of discussion about it right now.
not that case, but clubs aren't excused from liquor license requirements.
Right. I mean, Elks was open to the public. You know, they served lunch and they served the public, so they had a liquor license at the time, and Knights of Columbus as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Heisler, second by Mr. Zimmerman. Are there any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. With that, that ends our action items, so we will move on to the presentation of input items. First, we have the Downtown Fond du Lac Partnership Annual Plan, presented by Downtown Fond du Lac Partnership Executive Director Amy Krupp.
Thank you for having me here tonight. First, would like to explain why I'm here tonight. So, the DFP, we represent the Business Improvement District in downtown Fond du Lac, and the boundaries of the district, roughly, are at the north, Follett Street on Main Street. Then you go all the way down Main Street to 9th Street, and then pretty much Macy and Mar. It's a little bit jagged, but it encompasses 47 blocks in the center of the city. It also encompasses 214 buildings. Those 214 buildings are assessed, an assessment, on their property taxes every year, and the assessment is $2.60 per $1,000 in property value. The minimum payment is $150, and the maximum payment is $3,000. Those funds are what represents, I believe it's 44% of our budget. So that money is turned over to us, and I'm going to tell you tonight of all the great things we do with that funding. Maggie, could you go to the, yeah, there. So the next slide is our proposed budget for 2025, very much like 2024, really inflationary types of changes. We have a little bit of adjustments in our special events, but nothing too notable. I'm going to start in no particular order with some of the things we do. I'm going to kick it off with marketing, and this is to whatever we can do to support the 290 businesses that are in our district, and one of them is our Open Flag program. I believe we have 44 businesses that now utilize the open flags when they're open. I tagged in there the Zimmerman Building. That is a partnership with Fond du Lac High School, and that will be coming up in the next couple weeks for their student or for their homecoming, where we partnered with, I believe, 17 different organizations with the high school, just to get, I really want to get kids involved in downtown. So I really like this program, and it increases the excitement downtown. We, of course, do a lot with social media, mostly Facebook and Instagram. We offer our Downtown Fond du Lac gift certificates, and those are good at 70 downtown businesses. But to the left of the screen is something, and it's not even off the press yet. I haven't printed them yet because I'm still tinkering a little bit, but this will just be a simple flyer of all of our retail, restaurants, and activity-based businesses. And we will have these all throughout downtown and maybe even throughout the city. They'll be in pad form to highlight all the different places downtown. I still believe people are not quite aware of all the great places we do have downtown. And just as an extra enhancement, we have 3 different QR codes. One leads directly to our special events calendar. One leads directly to our full business directory of all 290 businesses, and one leads directly to the parking map for downtown, because we always hear commentary that we need, people want to know where their parking is. So, Maggie, then I'm going to go into our different events that we do. The first series of events is promotional events, and these are a little bit lesser behind-the-scenes work. We go to the businesses and say, hey, we're doing a Witches Day Out. That's one of our next ones coming up. What can you do? Is there a special, a promotion, a giveaway, anything you can do to get involved? And we put together a listing of everything that's available from all the downtown businesses for all of these different events. Really, it's up to the businesses if they would like to be involved or not. The next series, Maggie, is our walk events, and we currently have 9 walk events, and these are designed to get people into businesses. And we typically have about 20 different businesses that participate in these different types of walks, with the idea of you receive a map of all the different places to go to, you receive a sample of some sort, or an Easter egg, or a sample of chili, or a sweet from the sweet stroll. But they're all designed to get people into businesses, and we typically hear that people they were not aware of 50% of businesses that were on the crawl. We want people to say, oh oh my gosh, I didn't know this was here. And maybe they're not shopping that evening, but we want them to, when it comes time to buy a gift or for the holidays, that they come back to these businesses because they remember them from this crawl. Our next series of events is market events. These are outdoor events out on the street. We have the Farmers Market, the Fondue Fest, and Night Market. We just closed out the Night Market for the season last Thursday. And I wanted to point out in the picture that's on the slide is you'll see that we have 2 of our community service officers in that picture. And for all of these events that we do outside, we rely very much on having the city as a partner. We have Fondue Fest coming up, and we really, really appreciate the assistance we receive from fire, police, public works, community development. It really takes those things to pull these events off, so I really appreciate the partnership we have with the city. Our upcoming special events, Fondue Fest is next Saturday, and then we continue our farmers market through October 26th. Wanted to mention that our events typically attract 90,000 people over the course of the year, and they provide $4.2 million in economic impact, not just to the downtown, but to the city of Fond du Lac. And those tabulations are provided to us by Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. The next topic is communication. And I really wanted to get into this because we have been making some efforts this year to really improve our outreach efforts. We have an 11-member board of directors, and those people are business and property owners throughout the district. But I wanted to make sure that everyone realized we do have open public meetings where the public is invited. We offer the public to speak. One of the new things that we created this year, it's one of the smaller ones on here, but I wanted to put it up here to remember to talk about it, is our grievance form, where if any person, business, property owner, just a community citizen has a concern with the organization, that we have put together a form where it can be provided to any staff member, any board member, and that we will have an active discussion as to how we can solve whatever issue may be out there. We have also started doing surveys at our events. You'll see the one that says, "How are we doing?" where people that are at the events scan them and they can provide feedback as to how we're doing at our events. We also have 2 private Facebook groups, and one is for business and property owners, and one is for, again, business owners, but with the intent of having an active discussion as to how can they work together to better market their businesses. So, for example, a big topic of discussion is the farmers market. There's a lot of people that come down for the farmers market, especially this year. We're having a really great year with attendance, but how do we get people beyond the borders of the farmers market? How do we get them to walk 2 blocks to the other stores? Those types of things. So that Facebook group is really trying to see what else can we do? What can we partner with each other? One of the things that was brought to my attention during one of these groups was the need for a contingency planning workshop, where we have a lot of small business owners, typically owned by a husband and wife, or maybe just a single person. But what happens if something happens to them? What happens to their business? What legal paperwork do they need to have in place? So that is a session that we are going to be hosting in September. So everybody is prepared for those sorts of circumstances. Some other things we are doing on the left, you'll see we just recently put out this essential contact information. And again, I field calls, I know Diane fields calls of, there's things that people see out there and they want to report them and they're not quite sure who to report them to. So we provided them with the correct folks to, or the phone number of who to report their concerns to. The photo on the bottom is what we call our night walk, and we did this earlier this summer with the Fond du Lac Police Department, where some of our board members, Diane and the police department, we walked through pretty much the back alleys to find out what was really going on after dark. And in that walk, we discovered just a lot of random streetlights that were out, or maybe property owners that didn't realize that they have security cameras, but the light bulbs are burned out, or they're not on the correct timer, things like that. And then also some areas maybe that we could clean up, trees that could be trimmed, all sorts of things like that. But it was great to partner with the police department because they can tell us what they're seeing in the evening and where interesting things are happening. So there was a lot of good that came out of that project. And I know the following day I contacted 15 different business owners just to say, hey, do you know this is going on your property after hours? So also wanted to throw in, I'm sure everybody's aware at this point, we are going to be embarking on a resurfacing project of Main Street next year. And we had an informational meeting this past week. And I think it's great that the city put that together so early on, preparing people so no one's blindsided. It's going to be a year, we can work through it. It will be, not ideal circumstances, but we will work with our property owners, business owners to make sure that it's smooth as possible and that they are in the know of the dates of what's happening. Maggie? Our organization is accredited by Wisconsin Main Street and then also National Main Street. And I think it's important that we maintain that status because of the services provided back to us. The picture in the middle was a service that was provided to us by WEDC, where they brought in a retail consultant, where we hosted a session on merchandising your storefronts and sprucing up the interior of your buildings. And after the workshop, they visited one-on-one with 6 of our new businesses. And that's just one example of the services that are provided to us through either Wisconsin Main Street or Main Street America. So just wanted to mention that. It is important. Maggie? This is our 20-year anniversary of being a Wisconsin Main Street community. And over that time, we have seen $148 million of private investment in the district. And we know that because we are part of being a Wisconsin Main Street program, is we need to report monthly all the different additions, changes, modifications, renovations that are done to the district. Our new businesses in 2024, so we had 19 new businesses in 2023. So far in 2024, we have 13 new businesses. I have some of them shown here. I couldn't find everybody's logo. We also have 4 businesses that have expanded into larger locations. We have 11 properties that have been purchased by new ownership. And one specifically I wanted to mention because it's been vacant for so long is Book World. And if you notice, they started renovations a few weeks back, and that will be renovated into retail space on the bottom level and maybe 4 apartments on the upper level. It's also great because we have a definite demand for residential downtown. In 2023, we introduced a few new grants, and part of the new business grant and the experience generator grants are that the business needs to provide to us a viable business plan. They also need to have a 2-year lease, and they have to agree to meet with a business coach or to have somebody to meet with periodically. We pay the grant in payments. We give them a first down payment, but then on their opening day, and then at a month, and then at 2 months. And the whole intent of the program is to have some time with the businesses to work with them to make sure they're successful. We base this off of WEDC had what was called the Bounce Back Grant, but the grant was all given up front. And so as Diane and I tried to invent our new programs, we wanted to have some check-in points with the businesses. And overall, that's going pretty well. On the next slide, I have our new business recipients so far for this year. This is a $2,500 grant meant to support startup costs. And the next slide, we have the experience generator grants. We will have the opening of Tantrum Rage Room and Arcade at 44 North Main, and they are expecting to open next Friday, I believe. Another program that we offer is the Building Security Grant, and I love this grant because these are the 5 that have been awarded the grant this year, but this totals now 16 properties, and the grant covers the cost of exterior cameras on a property. And the agreement is also that their system needs to be compatible with Fond du Lac Police Department system. So upon request, the Fond du Lac Police Department can call the property owner and log into their system. And I have been aware of a few different crimes that have been solved or things like that. So I think this has been just a huge successful program. Our next program is the Building Improvement Grant. And over the course of this grant, we have awarded 210 different grants. And remember, we only have 214 buildings in the district. So this program is used very, very well. Lots of people take advantage of this program. So to date, we've awarded $1.132 million back to our downtown property owners, and it has leveraged $7.4 million in private investment in this time. It also calculates for every dollar that the city is investing in this program, we're seeing $6.53 in private investment. The next slide shows the building improvement grants that we've awarded so far this year. And the pictured one is a pretty exciting one, Fond du Lac Brewing Company on 21st 4th Street. I like to drive by every day because they're really going at it, and they hope to be open yet this fall. A couple other projects that are exciting. The Rooping Lofts project, this was purchased. This is the old Beer Nuts. This was purchased by Sam Meyer. It's now under renovation, and it is in the final stages of being approved for historic tax credits, both at the state level and the national level. And the intent is that this project will get off the ground in November. And again, I believe this building will house 8 new apartments and then retail on the first level. Another project is the State Farm project. This is up at Reese in Maine, and this is again another Sam Meyer project where he moved a building that was previously on Mar and doing an addition. And again, I believe he intends to have this done in the fall. A project that we have undertaken, we call it the Catalytic Project, and every year Diane and I pick a project of someone or a building that could really use a good facelift, but fits some different parameters that we have. And this is actually 2 years in the making. So the building that's on the left was actually our 2023 project, and the building on the right is our 2024 project. But it ended up that it was obviously cost effective to do them both at the same time. If you drive by right now, that's what they're working on. The project started this past week, and we are excited to see the results. This will be again done yet this fall. Another project we completed this year is new banners. And I just wanted to point out, there's Cody Berschbach. He is our city electrician. The city electrical department really helps us out with all these projects. But they're great, and I really appreciate, again, the partnership with the city on these sorts of projects. And then finally, a few art projects we are working on. The one on the left is some repair work to the Mojo mural. I believe it's at 84 North Main. The paint was chipping away, so that was rehabbed, and then also it was covered with a top seal coat, so hopefully we won't have that issue again. And then at the right is Fat Joe's, the mural art that went up on the side of that building. So with that, I'm happy to take on any questions that you might have or any comments.
Thank you so much for the informative presentation, and we will start with Ms. Leering.
I just have a question about the downtown Fond du Lac essential contact information.
Yeah.
You said that you provided that to various businesses in the downtown. They have that information.
I emailed it out last week with our newsletter. It's hot off the press.
Okay,
and I think you're all on my email newsletter list, so I'm hoping you saw it last week too.
Okay, I was
Okay,
just
few
wondering.
nods, okay.
I've been getting a lot of calls. I don't know, maybe because I'm always at the farmer's market and everyone knows me down there, but just a lot of concerns. And so I think it'll be helpful so that people can call the right places.
Right,
And
because, yeah, I think, I certainly don't mind getting the calls, and I know Diane doesn't either, but if they can have a direct line of the right person to call, I think it alleviates a lot of frustration.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they got it. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Schussler.
I just have some quick things. Last year, you talked about the flags that would come, the businesses would put out.
The open flags?
Open flags, yeah. How is that? Any feedback on our people finding that's being effective, or?
It is, because it's still going. We have 44 businesses that put them out, and then we have an extra supply if anybody's get lost or stolen. But really, it's meant to, for example, when you're at the farmer's market, the dream is that you look down Main Street and you see all these yellow flags and you say, oh yeah, that's open too, I'm gonna walk that way. You know, we just want people to keep walking. If they can see the flags, that they just keep walking to the next open business.
It's definitely brought me into places, so I think it's a great
Great.
idea to keep going. And at the night markets, I noticed, maybe I don't know if I'm right or not, but it seemed like there are more food vendors there on the end of Sheboygan Street. Is there more this year than last year? Or?
We had more vendors overall. It's still growing. The intent there, I would love to see the night market go all the way up to Merrill. But it's still, I think it's infancy yet. It's our third year. But that, again, would be the intent, to keep it growing.
Then with the building improvement grants, I know that the state, I don't think it's the Main Street office, but it's maybe the WEDC. They also have a building improvement grant that people can apply for, right? Or
No.
not aware of that?
No, you might be thinking of, though, the community investment.
Through the state, there's a community development investment, and that's what we did for Beer Nuts. And then also, as a commercial property owner through the State Historical Society, you can apply for tax credits as a commercial property for facades. But the state does not offer any building facade grants other than the building improvement grant that the city offers in partnership with the DFP.
Thank you. And last is just a comment. I'm so glad we have an ordinance that, talking about your communication issue and signage, that I'm so glad we have an ordinance that prohibits the electronic messaging communication, because I know for the accreditation, historic preservation is a big part of your accreditation, and if we had those electronic messaging centers on the downtown district, I think that would just destroy the historic character of the downtown. So just a comment. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you, Ms. Brault. Hello, Amy. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. My seat just lowered as I did that.
I can only see you up to here.
Yes, must be a sight on camera right now. Question for you. You know, everything is good down there. I mean, 90% of things are good. You know, unfortunately, our job is to hear the bad once in a while, and I'm not saying it's bad, but I hear the phone calls. And North Main Street, they call me a lot, and they want to see what the vision and the plan is. I didn't see anything directly in this. I see a long range of Main Street, but is there anything in particular for North Main Street that you can really hit on that?
Do you mean up to the park?
No, I would say from about, I'll be honest with you, the 3rd and 1 up to the bakery. About that little stretch right there, I hear a lot of phone calls. They feel left out, I guess, of it all.
Well, for example, though, we do, I believe, 22 events out of the year. For example, I just showed you nine of them are walks. Yeah. Any business can participate in a walk. So the farmer's market, yes, it is on certain blocks, and the night market is on certain blocks, and I've just already said I would like it to grow as we can. And we have Fondue Fest that is applicable for those businesses too. So there is something they can all participate in our promotional events. They can participate in our gift certificate program. There are a lot, and frankly, like I mentioned before, our district goes from Follett to 9th, and I absolutely feel the folks that are in those extremities. It's really difficult because they're not in walkable distance for any of our walks. But that's why we try to do the promotional efforts, and we also try to have the grant programs. Anything, those programs that help everybody are the programs that I really love. So
For the night market to expand, what would you need? I've heard this for the last couple of years, that we want to expand, but there's something holding it back. Is there anything, anything we can do as a council, or?
yeah, get more vendors.
Well.
We need more people. Yeah. But we've talked about, maybe some weeks we could, this could be for the night market or for farmers market. Can we add a kids zone 1 week, or do a car show 1 week, to take up extra blocks? And we are completely open to that. Next year, though, is going to be a challenge because we are going to be under construction. So, but we're definitely open to a rehabilitation of Main Street. But yeah, we are definitely open to expanding as we can.
I guess my only other question is, how do you guys check in with businesses? I mean, I'm talking face-to-face. Do you guys have a strategic plan of how you get into every business on Main Street throughout a year and say, hey, I'm Amy, how we doing?
Unfortunately, we don't. It's more what we hear on the street. Like I said, we have 11 board members that are out there every day in their businesses, and a lot is brought to my attention, and I do my best to get to anyone that we hear there are any concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heisler.
Thank you. Great presentation, Amy. Thank you for your time on that. Just a couple questions. I wanted to just expand on just a few things. I wanted to just have you just walk me through a little bit further, because I think that grievance form that you guys put together, that's a really great communication tool. And so if something gets brought to your attention, can you tell me about how that process will then work from there?
Yeah, it's a little bit open-ended because depending on the circumstances, but our typical process is our executive committee would hear any sort of grievance. And for anybody who would like to fill out a grievance form, we have it right on our website. Right, we have all of our board of directors plus all their emails, and if there's still an issue, the grievance form can be handed in to any board member or any staff member, whoever they feel comfortable with.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that. Also, props to the night market success. We've had a lot of fun at the night market this year, and the growth has just been wonderful to see. So thank you so much. It's been really cool to see so many people doing those night markets, and here's hoping we can do more of those. That was a great thing. I'm very excited about the security camera stuff that we've talked about, because I know that's a major concern for a lot of folks. So thank you, Chief Goldstein, and everybody involved in making that happen for us. And I just wanted to touch on one more time on the awesome contingency planning thing you guys have coming up, because I think that's something that's really significant, that affects far more people than I even realized. Can you just talk about that just a little bit more?
Oh, so the discussion, like in our Facebook group, it just started, I don't want to be grim about this, but typically you have a husband and wife that owns the building and the business. What happens if something happens to both of them? Who takes on the business? What if the business isn't profitable? Now who takes on the business? That sort of thing. So I was put in contact with some of our attorneys at Dempsey Law Office, and they have agreed to do a workshop in kind to all of our business owners.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then lastly, if someone has an idea for a new event, because I know you guys are always open to that, and we've seen the expansion of a lot of walks and a lot of other events and things like that. I know you've got a marketing subcommittee, and then you've also got your main board. So if someone has an idea, how does that go from idea to you guys and then into a plan of action?
Yeah, we have a pretty active marketing committee. There's probably 12 different business owners on it, and they can bring anything onto the agenda, any good ideas they're hearing. We are currently looking for new events for next year, because we know of one, the beer and seltzer crawl we held a few weeks ago. We're not going to continue that one, so we're looking to take on something new.
Okay.
And we're always open. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the time. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, you had more questions. We're good. Okay. Well, I'll just echo the thank you for the wonderful presentation. Mr. Heisler touched on many of the things that I wanted to talk about. Night market, the last one was actually the only one I was able to make it to this summer, just because it was a busy summer, and it was fantastic. It was just wonderful to see all the people out there. The music is always great. So it's exciting to hear that you're excited to try to expand it, so hopefully we'll see more vendors.
And the weather gods were in our favor this year.
Yeah, with that rain, it was hard to know what it was going to look like later in the summer, so thank goodness. And yeah, just Mr. Heisler touched on the grievance form. I'm really glad that you have a process in place. I think as we're seeing our community shift, we're seeing a shift to more desire to gather in the center of our community, and of course that leads to growing pains, right? There's more things that can come up, and so I'm really glad to hear that you have a plan in place to try to make sure people are heard when things are coming up. And really just, it's just exciting to see all the things that are happening. Fondue Fest is coming up. That's always a wonderful, exciting event. So lots of exciting things happening. So thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from council members? Seeing none, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we will move on to our 2025 library budget presentation presented by Library Director John Mark Bolthouse.
Thank you. I will wait for the slide to come up, and then I will get started here. Awesome. Well, thank you, President Brault, and thank you, members of City Council, city staff, and the public. I always look forward to this time of year when I'm given the opportunity to share with you the accomplishments of the library from last year and what we have planned for 2025. I don't know about you, but I felt like there's been a theme with a lot of these presentations that we've had this year, and so though mine is not going to go with that same theme, I wanted to at least include this, saying libraries, because even heroes need good books to read.
Any questions?
Yeah. Those books, by the way, are available at the library if you're looking for quality reading, so feel free. Moving on, I want to talk first show you our mission. Our mission is to support the high quality of life in Fond du Lac through reading, lifelong learning, and community involvement. You notice that while reading and literacy are prime components of our mission, it's not the only thing we strive to obtain. The library is a hub and connector to the community, a place where community members can explore, learn, be entertained, and connect with other like-minded folks over a variety of topics. You'll see in the upcoming slides how the library achieves this through the programs, outreach, and materials we provide. Here are our strategic priorities as developed by the library board and the library staff. Community happens here. We are a radically welcoming library. We create a culture of curiosity and innovation within the community. We communicate effectively and inclusively with our community. We invest in our people and places. I'll go over in detail how we use these priorities to drive the operations of the library and what we've accomplished in the past 12 months. I'm going to start with community happens here. Our first strategic priority is that we see the library as a hub and connector to the community, regardless of location. While the library has 2 locations within the city, we also want to expand our role by meeting folks where they are. This means an emphasis on outreach. Here are just some of the outreach events the library participated in during the last 12 months. We could be found at Fondue Fest, the Night Market downtown, National Night Out, the Pride Picnic, Juneteenth, Prairie Fest, and the Farmers Market, just to name a few. But we've also moved library services to several organizations in town, bringing story times and reading events to the children at St. Catherine's Shelter, the Domestic Violence Shelter, as well as story times at several daycare facilities within the city. We also provided an art class for the clients of the ARC, which was a very popular event with that audience. Community is happening within the library as well, especially when it comes to partnerships we have with various service agencies. 2 that I want to highlight are the Fond du Lac Literacy Services Organization and the Job Center of Wisconsin. We've had a strong partnership and relationship with literacy services for over 2 decades. They, if you don't know, are a separate nonprofit 501c3, but their mission and the library's mission are so closely aligned that it makes sense to have them housed within the library. Their office is on the 2nd floor, and there they offer adults with tutoring sessions, group classes, and citizen prep, all to improve English language reading and writing, regardless if English is your native language and you need help as a low literacy learner, or whether you're coming in with English as a second language. I'm especially proud of their efforts to help help community members become U.S. citizens. Every month, volunteer tutors help students study for their citizen exam, and they've reported back on the success of many students over the years who've passed the test and are now official citizens. Another newer partnership we have is with the Job Center of Wisconsin. When the local office closed their doors to their physical location over on the east side of town, the Job Center approached the library looking for space. We went ahead and formed a partnership where the Job Center is embedded in the library several days a week on the second floor. Clients can utilize library computers dedicated to Job Center work, including job searching, resume building, and unemployment insurance filing. Clients can also use the office space devoted to the Job Center to work with coaches, helping them land that job. With the recent layoffs in town, we've seen an increase to this need, but we're happy to report that the Job Center has increased their presence and are embedded more days than before. And we really feel like this is a great partnership because the library has always been a place where people have come looking for that information, but this way they can get specialized and really just high quality help from the Job Center. Our second strategic priority states we are a radically welcoming library. Now, that is a bold statement. What does it mean? For us, it means we want all community members to know that they are welcome. We strive to be inclusive, to offer spaces and services that are representative of our diversity, and to always center the safety and well-being of our community members, especially those that have historically been underrepresented or marginalized. We strive to be welcoming in a number of ways, including inclusive design. This means providing the tools and resources that allow better accessibility to our building and collection. Over the past 12 months, we've realized that accessibility was lacking as a component to several of our services that we offer. We've made the following changes to our services to be better accommodating to those using the library. This year, we added the following assistive technologies to the library. A variable height computer desk. This is a desk that can move up and down depending on the needs of the individual. It's located on the second floor and incorporated in our other public workstations. As a side note, our public computing offerings continue to grow. We not only have a wireless network service that served out 65,408 sessions last year, we have a bank of computers located on the second floor that helped 17,000 individuals search for jobs, do research, or connect to social media. One of the other services that we've offered are specialized mice and keyboards. These are accessories that can help someone who is visually impaired more easily use a computer. We already have assistive technology on the monitors, but adding mice and keyboards to the mix makes it even easier to use. And so these are actually keyboards. If you think about a keyboard on a regular desk that has black with white writing, it's sometimes hard for someone who's visually impaired to see that. And so ours are actually yellow with black writing, and it's helped a lot of people that are not quite blind but are visually impaired utilize the services. We have new self-check machines that are ADA accessible. If you've been to the library anytime lately, you've noticed that we've replaced our self-check machines, the device that allows patrons to check out materials without going to the circulation desk. Our new machines have adapted technologies that allow even more of our patrons the ability to check out by themselves. We also hired a staff member fluent in American Sign Language. While they can't be at the library at all times, it's good to have someone on staff available to assist with patrons who are deaf or hard of hearing. We strive to be radically welcoming by increasing representation through the signs and wayfinders throughout the library. As we know, the community continues to diversify, and it's important that directional information is provided in multiple languages so that patrons can navigate the library's physical space in a way that is understood. Not only that, but the documentation we create must be understood by all of our patrons. By providing information in a patron's native language, we're able to connect them to the resources they need. Here are just a few of the ways we've increased representation at the library. When it comes to signage, we're more and more adding bilingual signs around the library. You can now find signs in both Spanish and English, helping more community members find their way around the library. We will continue to add to our collection of signs in more than one language in the coming months and years. We've translated several of our bookmarks into 3 languages, actually, English, Spanish, and Hmong, again, acknowledging the diversity of the community. Just so you know, our library card application is already translated into Spanish, meaning we can provide native Spanish speakers an easier way to apply for a library card. We've also translated our summer reading information into Spanish, again, allowing more access to resources. And finally, we're hiring more bilingual staff members. We are currently striving to have at least one staff member available to speak Spanish anytime the library is open, and we think we've accomplished that right now, especially with some of the people that we've hired through the Design Lab program, which I'll talk about in a sec. Lastly, we strive to be radically welcoming by decreasing barriers that inhibit community members from accessing material, especially financial barriers. We've now been fine-free for a couple of years, and it continues to be the right decision. We've not seen an uptick in people not returning their items and continue to get positive feedback about moving in this direction. We're not the only library going down the path of fine-free, and I think you're going to see more and more libraries exploring this option in the coming years. As a reminder, our fine-free policy applies to reading materials, books and magazines, audiobooks, etc. We're still collecting fines on DVDs, CDs, and the equipment we have like cake pans, the giant outdoor games, and the board games, but when it comes to reading materials, we're fine-free. And of course, electronic materials are always fine-free. When your time with the electronic item is over, the item magically disappears from your device, whether it's a Kindle, iPad, tablet, or computer, so you don't have to worry about any kind of fines with those. One of our other initiatives in reducing barriers this year was to reduce the cost of printing and faxing. The amount we were charging for both services was not in line with actual costs. And actually, the faxing service was provided by a third-party vendor and was cost prohibitive for many users. Believe it or not, faxing is still a necessary service needed by community members, and we see daily usage of the fax machine. Earlier this summer, we offered a new service that combines scanning, faxing, and emailing of documents at one workstation. With the service came a significantly reduced cost of faxing. We decided to pass this cost savings on to the patron, bringing the cost of faxing down to 10 cents a page. That led us to look at our actual cost for printing and copying, and we realized that we could reduce these costs as well. Now all print services, printing, copying, and faxing cost 10 cents per page. The financial barrier that was affecting users needed to fax medical records, print a temporary title for their car, or copy a resume has been reduced to a level that is manageable for all. Next, we create a culture of curiosity and innovation within the community. We proactively connect to our community with what they need, when they need it, whether it be resources, spaces, or other people. And why is this important? It's important because public libraries connect people with information, whether it be through a display area, a conversation at the reference desk, or an activity at an event. Groups that are slightly less engaged with us or underutilizing the library should be prioritized for outreach by the library. And here's how we're doing that. I love talking about this program, and if you're not familiar with it, I hope that you'll make the opportunity to come and visit with our Design Lab. Design Lab is a grant-funded program that provides STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math, program camps to 3rd through 5th graders throughout the community. Students explore design thinking, work on projects like creating a solar oven, and learn about STEAM education with their peers. Just this summer, we reached more than 125 students through our Design Lab camps. Over the course of 5 weeks, 5 days a week, students were here at the library and at our partner location, Thelma Sadoff Center for the Arts, creating, making, and doing, all within the context of a STEAM curriculum. We will continue this program in the fall, offering several Saturday sessions within the school year for interested students. This program is a logical offshoot of our makerspace, the Idea Studio. As a reminder, the Idea Studio is a place for creation, innovation, and curiosity, housing several 3D printers, sewing machines, an embroidery machine, a laser cutter, a CNC mill, a digital recording studio, a sublimation printer, that's what creates like t-shirts and mugs, and other printable items, a demonstration kitchen, and much, much more. Currently, the Idea Studio is limited to users 13 years or older. We applied for the Design Lab grant in order to connect younger library users with the space in a safe and appropriate manner. Students in the school district have the opportunity to opt into STEM education at the STEM Academy, but not until they enter 6th grade. Design Lab strives to give younger students a taste of the STEM curriculum, with an A for arts education thrown in there as well, so that when they're making the choice to go to a traditional middle school like Tyson, Woodworth, or Sabish, or choose the STEM Academy, they'll have an idea of what to expect. Design Lab is about to enter its year 4 of a 5-year grant, and we look forward to continuing to bring high-quality STEAM education opportunities to the community. I welcome you to come visit a camp session and see what the students are exposed to. I think you'll be impressed with the offerings and surprised that such a program exists in Fond du Lac. We are one of 3 sites chosen by the Department of Education to offer this program. The other 2 are in Maryland and in Long Beach, California. So that you throw Fond du Lac in the mix and it's saying something. When it comes to innovation, we've had so much more than books. Here are a few things we are now circulating for folks to come and check out from the library. We have state park passes that allow you to visit a state park for free for the day. Through a partnership with the Children's Museum of Fond du Lac, we have a museum pass that gives community members the opportunity to check out the museum for free. We have a huge selection of board games, both for children and adults. This is a wonderful option for trying a game before you buy it, and games can be checked out for 7 days, just like a DVD or a CD. We've added a small selection of video games to the collection, and they are very popular with teens and adults. This is something that the public has been asking for years now, and we're happy to try it out and happy that they've been so well received. We also continue to increase our equipment collection. This is our library of things, which includes everything from ukuleles to cake pans to giant games you can take to your next family reunion and item, and lots of other stuff. A ghost hunting kit, all kinds of other things for you to see. Far too many to mention. We continue to add items to this collection and have seen an increase in checkouts of most of the items over the past year. This may sound like a new concept, but really it's not. Our library used to check out framed art that you could take home and hang on your wall. This was 30 or 40 years ago, but still it's something other than books. When it comes to programs, we are so much more than story times, and I highlight 4 events that we hosted within the past 12 months. Our Bluey Party, there up in the upper left-hand corner, was an amazing success with over 700 people attending. The library was packed. We had no idea that Bluey would prove to be so popular. Those of you that have children probably knew that Bluey, or grandchildren knew that Bluey would be this popular. We were not expecting this kind of crowd coming to see Bluey. Every year we host a Winter Wonderland celebration, culminating with a visit from Santa. This last December saw over 600 visitors to the event, and each child got to spend time with Santa, take photographs, and left with a new quality book as a present. Many parents talked to me afterwards, letting me know how special the event was to them and their family, and how significant it was to have a free event during the holidays where a family could visit with Santa without being charged a fee. Along with our great partners over at Public Works, we hosted our annual Touch a Truck at Lakeside Park. Around 600 children and family members attended this year, having the opportunity to explore the big trucks and equipment that keep our city running. And finally, we hosted several escape rooms at the library. Hundreds of children and teens had the chance to solve the mystery of the room in a safe and age-appropriate environment. We received lots of positive feedback about these events, and they are always booked up ahead of time. Next, we communicate effectively and inclusively with our community. We strive to meet the needs of all of our community members, and we provide messaging that makes it easier for people to see themselves in the places, people, and practices of the library. In order to more effectively communicate with our patrons, we are embarking on a website redesign this year. Our goal is to have an effective and efficient site that allows the public access to the resources we subscribe to, the reference databases, like Ancestry.com, and digital copies of our local newspapers, as well as program information, hours of operation, and other information about the library needed by the public. Look for a revamped website later this year. We hope to have it finalized by December. We're also putting a strong emphasis on social media. The library utilizes several platforms in order to get our message out there and communicate with our patrons. We have an email newsletter that is delivered regularly to anyone who subscribes. We have a presence on Facebook, Twitter, X, and Instagram, posting nearly daily on all platforms, and also run a YouTube channel, utilizing that technology to archive programs, offer online classes from the Idea Studio, and post fun videos about the library. We will continue to use these platforms to deliver our message, and we'll continuously look at emerging platforms as needed. Our final strategic priority is investing in our people and places. The library building is a cornerstone in the community, and our staff is its bedrock. Investing in physical space as well as staff development is a key to our success. This year, we've had several opportunities for staff development, including conference attendance, staff in-service days, as well as a monthly all-staff meeting that introduces staff to new ideas and concepts. Professional development and continuing education opportunities have helped staff grow professionally, building new skills and introducing innovative ideas to bring back to the community. We will continue to find these opportunities and do our best to invest in our staff's education growth. And now on to places. In January 2024, the library's branch location, located on the east side of town, moved from one side of the Festival Food Complex to the other. In 2023, we renamed the branch after our former county executive, Alan Beekle. The new location has made the library more known to folks using the complex, and we've seen an increase in both circulation and visitors now that we've moved. I know that there was some concern at first about parking, but that hasn't been an issue like folks thought it might be. There seems plenty of parking available during the time the library branch is open. While we're now competing with other businesses, we are not seeing it as a barrier to customers to use the new location. If you haven't had a chance to visit the branch, I urge you to do so. Stop in. We're open 7 days a week, just like the main branch downtown. While you're there, you'll see a small but mighty collection of new material, an area devoted to children, and a one-of-a-kind circulation desk that we're very happy to move from the old location to the new. There are a ton of projects that are happening or happened already at the library in terms of physical space. Believe it or not, the solar project on the roof is still on. While this has been years in the making, we are moving forward with a contractor and will be installing solar panels on the roof one way or another. I have a meeting set up with the contractor this Friday, and we will have a solid timeline but the good news is that this project is indeed moving forward. Over the past 24 months, we've replaced the current lighting in the library with LED fixtures, saving energy and providing a better experience for the users of the space. One of the most consistent requests that we've got is offering a water bottle filler option at our drinking fountains. I can happily report that this year we were able to do so. Even after a few months, the usage had 5,000 fills, so clearly this was something that the public really wanted. This may seem trivial, but meeting the people's needs when it comes to facilities is fulfilling. We have now replaced the carpeting in the entire library, replacing the original carpeting from the remodel and renovation in 2001. All the spaces look great, and we couldn't have done this without the support of the City Council and the administration staff like Tricia. We've been able to utilize some ARPA funds to replace our aging self-checks that I mentioned before. The new machines bring with them a lot of new features and are easier to use than the old ones. They are a welcome addition to the library. Finally, we have replaced several of the tables in our meeting rooms and will be replacing worn furniture throughout the library. With as many visitors as we have every day, it's hard to keep furniture looking good. Some of the chairs are over 25 years old and are showing their age. Replacing them will make the library continue to look good for many years to come. So here's a listing of just some of the things that we've done in terms of numbers. As you can see, we're still circulating nearly 400,000 items every year. That's only physical items housed in the library. The real growth, however, is in electronic usage. That number, over 1,100,000, is 22% higher than last year. We continue to invest in electronic resources through a partnership with every library in Wisconsin. Each year, every Wisconsin library contributes a calculated amount to a shared pool of resources. Each library pays based on population served, so our bill is more than North Fond du Lac's, but less than Oshkosh's. That money is then pooled together in order to purchase electronic resources we can all share. We as a state are effectively contributing $2 million on e-resources every year. But that amount is not nearly enough to meet the demands of the users. Indeed, people can still expect a wait of several months when it comes to popular titles. In order to try to limit that wait time, we also contribute to a fund that is managed by Winifox, our library system. Winifox members get the additional benefits of extra copies just for them, and no other library system is contributing as much money toward buying down their holds as we are. When it comes to the number of electronic items to download, that number is a combination of that pool of resources as well as our subscription to Kanopy. Kanopy is a free streaming service available to the public, offering quality movies, television shows, and lots of children's programming, all available with your library card. So far, the service has been very popular, and we've served up several thousand views in the past 12 months. The number of registered users that you see there, 18,619, is very accurate. We purge the database every year of cards that haven't been used in 3 years, so keeping that number is a reflection of the current users who are actually using the library. While 230,000 visitors is still lower than it was pre-COVID, we're increasing visitor traffic every year, and 2024 will be no exception. Currently, we're up 18% when compared with 2023. So again, we keep seeing people come to the library. And finally, we offered 762 programs to 17,644 attendees. That's more than 2 programs a day, every day. So what will 2025 bring the library? We will continue to do all the things we've done this year, but we'll add several new initiatives to our plate. The first is an increase in support for early literacy. You may have seen the library offering multiple screenings of the documentary, The Right to Read. We will continue to support the early literacy initiatives by participating in the newly formed Literacy Coalition, offering more screenings of the documentary, and providing library space for discussion groups and other activities. We will also be watching closely the development of AI and its impact on users of the library. While still in its infancy, AI has the potential to dramatically change the landscape and nature of our lives in a profound and impactful way. Like the dawn of the internet age, libraries can be at the forefront of this technology by offering instruction, consultation, and mentoring to our users. We were the place to go when the internet was introduced, and I think we can be the same source of unbiased and accurate information when it comes to artificial intelligence. Just a reminder, the relationship between a municipality and the library board is governed by state statute. When you see your budget book, you'll notice that the library is a one-line allocation. That's because the library board, by law, controls the funds allocated to the library. This does not mean that the municipality has its hands tied when it comes to the library and the board. City Council has a representative on the board. In this case, it's President Brault. She attends every meeting, votes to approve a list of bills every month, and oversees expenditures along with the other members of the board. Speaking of other members, of the 10 members that make up the library board, 7 are appointed by you, the City Council. The others are a representation of the community at large. The other 3 members are the appointed City Council member, an appointed County Board Supervisor, who happens to be here with us, a representative of the school board, either the school superintendent or their designee. This gives the city ample representation and accountability when it comes to matters of the library. And you are welcome to join us at our monthly library board meetings. We meet the 3rd Thursday of the month at 4:30 at the library. In summary, the library serves to be a vibrant and valuable asset to the Fond du Lac community. Through our strategic initiatives, we will continue to offer quality programs, outreach, and materials to all members of the community. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you the achievements of the library, and I now welcome any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you for that great presentation. Are there any questions or comments from council members? Mr. Schussler.
Excellent presentation, Mr. Bohaus.
Thank you.
On this year's budget we approved last November, the ARPA budget had a project, a local history project in it.
Yes.
Can you describe what that is going to look like, and is there any issue as far as completing it within the ARPA time deadlines?
I'll explain the project first, and then I'll talk about any deadlines. Although I can start with the end and say no, we're planning on having it completed, so we're making great progress on it. As you may know, there's a book called The Foot of the Lake, and that book was written in the 90s and was a history of Fond du Lac. And the library actually was the publisher of the book. We had hired a local author to write it on behalf of the library, and then we have owned the publishing rights of that book. A lot has happened in the last 30 years, and so especially here in Fond du Lac, and so we decided that we wanted to utilize some ARPA money to republish the book and also hire writers and editors that would help us bring the book back up to date, and also include some populations that may have not been included in the original book. And so we have 2 people that are actually working on it in terms of the writing team, and we have also reached out to the community and are asking for input from them. We're hoping that by September we have a draft of it, and then publishing it by the end of the year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heisler.
Thank you. Excellent presentation, John Mark. Thank you very much for that. Just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for still offering faxing, because my office doesn't, and I recently used it. That was great. Needed that for medical stuff, so appreciate those resources. That's one thing I just have to give you guys a lot of credit for. As a library board, you're always thinking of new ways to kind of keep people engaged, and that's something that I don't think I would have thought about, the fact that medical records and all that sort of stuff. It's one of those things that's kind of lost. So we appreciate all the thought and all the time that goes into those types of decisions, because I know you don't take those lightly.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you, because I missed what you said as far as the launch date. The website, when are you hoping the redesign's done?
We hope to be done by December.
Okay.
We're hoping to have it done this year. It's looking good. We're working actually with a local firm. We're working with Blue Door Consulting.
Okay.
And they're helping us go. We have had a couple meetings already. We're looking at themes. We're looking at colors. We're looking at all that. But we've done the work already behind the scenes of having, how we want to lay out the site, what kind of information we want to store there, and what's the purpose of it too, because we don't want it just a static site where it doesn't evolve and do it. So we're asking them to build those kind of resources with it.
And as far as the user interface, you're hoping that that's a little bit easier and a little bit just a more modern refresh?
Yeah, well, that especially from a mobile device standpoint.
Okay.
Our website does okay when it comes to mobile devices, but we want to make sure that it's adaptable to phones and tablets and what have you.
Excellent. Thank you. Just a couple more things. First off, thanks for not giving up on the solar project, because I'm sure that's been difficult from time to time. Oh, I can't imagine what you guys have gone through with that. So thank you for seeing that through. And if you could just tell me, give me kind of a history, if you would, just a brief overview of and how long you guys have been involved with WinFox, because that's been a really awesome partnership that we continue to see dividends paid on.
Sure. All libraries in the state belong to one or more of the library systems. So library systems were formed in the 70s, and so we've been a part of a library system since then. Fond du Lac County has switched a couple times from one system to the other, way before me.
Okay.
Back in the 80s, and I think in the 90s it happened. So we have a strong partnership with WinFox. They provide a lot of services in terms of consulting. They provide access to the e-resources. They do databases for us. There's quite a few different things. So we've had a relationship with them for a really long time.
Excellent. Just 2 more quick things. One, just want to thank you for everything you guys have done to continue to make Canopy available. That's been a monster, because my grandparents, they struggled when they couldn't get the DVDs they wanted to get anymore, and I'm sure that's been a challenge, because without as much disc production has happened, a lot of major movie studios and things like that have cut down on physical media. So it's nice that there's an option like Canopy out there for folks. That's great.
Thanks. Yeah, we're seeing that it's hit us hard. I mean, not our bread and butter, but we certainly we saw an increase in use of DVDs over the years, and then now it's just substantially dropped.
Sure.
I think right now we can only count on about 15 to 18% of our circulation is DVDs, and a lot of it has to do with people not having players at home,
right,
and also not having the amount of DVDs being released on. Or the amount of movies being released on DVD is just not happening anymore.
Right. And then lastly, I just wanted to ask you if you could expand just a little bit on the AI stuff, because the first computer that I ever took on the internet was a library computer. So you guys were the first ones in that regard, and that was really cool. And I know that I'm excited about a lot of things for AI. There's a few tasks in my daily job that I'm already using for AI, but some of that makes me a little bit nervous. At the same time, what kind of stuff are you seeing, and how do you think that's going to affect us in the future?
Well, I think I think that's why we want libraries to be on the forefront of this, is because I think there's a lot of variables and a lot of unknowns in terms of what it's going to affect us. I don't think that we're going to see the amount of job replacement as we think. I think what's going to happen is I think that your job is going to change, and then you're going to have to utilize AI. And so just like we had to train people to use computers, just how we did classes on when the internet first came out, and Yahoo and Alta Vista and some of those, early websites that people may or may not know about.
Yep.
I think we're looking at ChatGPT, and we're looking at the other services that are there, and saying, what does it mean to create that? And so again, it's really in the early stages of where I think the library is going to go. But I think that the new generation of library staff are going to have to be trained in knowing how to then train the trainer. So
Yeah.
that's really what's going to happen.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you again for a great presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from council members? Mr. Heisler did it again. He pushed his button.
It sticks. It's not my fault.
Well, I'll jump in. I think the library's okay. No, it has been one of my greatest honors to be on the library board as I serve on city council. It's just so exciting to be part of such an amazing institution. I just want to thank you and your staff for everything that you do to serve our community.
Thank you.
Mr. Schussler actually touched on, I did want to talk about the local history book because that is one of our ARPA projects. I've had the opportunity to be involved in one of the conversations about, I got to read the book, which I don't know that I've ever read that book before. It was well written, it's informative, but there's definitely a lot of work that can be done to make it more engaging, I think, to current children. So it's just really exciting to see that we were able to use some of that funding to improve a resource that's used in our kids' schools. I'm also really glad you talked about the Bluey Party because that was just an insane event. Like, if you haven't watched Bluey, it's just this incredible family kids show about dogs, blue healers. So it's a cartoon, but like it is crazy how it's kind of swept the world. And it was just such a great turnout. So yeah, Brett, if your baby's a little too little for Bluey, but
Eventually you'll be in it.
You're
getting there.
You'll be at the next Bluey party. But one of the things, speaking of events that are for families, I was wondering if you could talk about this shift in the meeting rooms because of the story time needs.
Oh, absolutely. People haven't been in the library in a little while. We have two rooms downstairs. We had a room called the Storytime Room, and we had a room called the Mid-States Room. And the Mid-States Room was for meetings, and the Storytime Room was for story times. But our number of children that were coming to story times and engaging with the librarians was over capacity. And in order not to get in trouble with the chief, we decided that we needed to switch rooms. And so we actually now have created the community room and the discovery room. And so in the discovery room, it's for children and teens, and it's just a much bigger space. We can actually have story times and play groups at a level where we're not over capacity. So
Yeah, well, now there's a smaller space for community meetings. I think it's just really exciting to know that we've had such an increase in families wanting to come to the library, experience story times and events.
absolutely.
And then I always want to give a shout out to Design Lab because I think that's just an incredible program. Again, serving our community's children, I think, is one of the greatest things that we can do. And the Idea Studio as well, it's just such an incredible resource. When I talk about our library to anybody, the Idea Studio is always what I want to talk about most because it's just so cool that we have all of these things that people can use that they probably wouldn't necessarily be able to afford at home, like a 3D printer or sublimation machine, or even sometimes a sewing machine that people can access at the library. So it's just, it's really cool. I think we have the best library in the state, so.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from council members? I'm not seeing any, so are you okay, Mr. Heisler? I hope so. Okay. Once again, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And we will move on to the 2025 budget presentation presented by our City Manager, Joe Moore, and Director of Administration, Tricia Davey.
Thank you, Ms. President, and good evening, everybody. Mr. Heisler, don't you miss the days when in the mail you got a CD from Netscape or AOL, and it had the entire internet on it? I mean, literally everything to that moment was on that disc. Seems so long ago. But in any event, because we had Amy's presentation tonight and John Marks, I wanted to start off by emphasizing a couple things, among many that we take for granted, and we take it for granted in a good way. If you were to parachute into other city council meetings around the state and told them that you annually authorize a couple $100,000 to your downtown for grant purposes, or in that case, you had their downtown person talking about the investments the city had made, it would be vastly, vastly different. The city of Fond du Lac does it in a way that is pretty unique across the state. And Amy was talking tonight about eclipsing $1 million in grants. She's not talking about money that was leveraged. She's talking about actual money. And it was all money that was authorized by the city council. So that's very, very different. But it's good that we can take that for granted because it's kind of in our DNA, and that's created a lot of good outcomes. And the other one is that, using that same analogy, if you were to parachute into many other municipal meetings, you would find there's a tension between, or sometimes friction between, library financial needs and municipal financial needs, and sometimes those stories don't end very well. And you know, in the city of Fond du Lac, we successfully endeavor to avoid that and to fund the library in a way that is part of our budget, but as John Mark said, also provides independence to the library. But you know, sometimes you've got to be financially independent by having enough finances. And so those are two things I just wanted to emphasize to you, that's, you know, a long tradition here. You're probably worried right now because it's past 7:30 and we've piled a lot of presentations into this evening. This will be brief because you're going to get this exact memo, the draft budget, and the draft capital improvement program in 2 days. So that will be those will be delivered to your residences on Friday. They'll also go live on the internet on Friday. But it's always good to have, I think, a roadmap. And so Tricia Davey and I tonight are very briefly going to give you that roadmap. And I'm going to say a few editorial comments, and then Tricia's going to highlight some of the financial things. But we're not going to emphasize a lot about dollars and cents. You've heard all of that since June. Every meeting is, you've had department heads talk about their budgets and their capital improvement plans. So here's a summary. And again, these are things you may not hear across the state in the next few weeks if you're paying attention to other cities for comparison. But this budget is balanced. It supports all of our missions. We're not dialing back on anything. It conserves our financial resources and protects our bond rating. And we wanted intentionally to have Baird tonight talk about, you know, our meeting with Standard & Poor's that took place a few days ago, and then the bond rating decisions that Standard & Poor's made. And, you know, those are really good outcomes. And so those 4 points that start out our budget memo, it's a 9-page memo, but, you know, those are really good things to lead off with. And then in this next section, before I hand it over to Tricia, I wanted to emphasize a little bit. We didn't put all of the points of excellence here, but a few. You know, this award that wastewater won is really exceptional. The fact that, you know, both our public safety entities are accredited internationally and nationally. I also should add that Amy mentioned about her accreditation, her Downtown Fond du Lac partnership. She didn't really emphasize it, but it's kind of rare that a Main Street program is accredited. There's a lot of effort and energy that went into that accomplishment, and I wanted to point that out on her behalf as well. And then we've talked to you before about our ISO rating, along with accreditation, as well as, you know, the certificate of achievement that Tricia's team just received recently. And so, you know, what you have is a proposed budget in 2025 and a capital improvement program that pretty much does everything we need to do in terms of supporting our missions financially. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tricia, and she's just going to hit the highlighted parts because we know you're going to read this, but I think it's, you know, something I commend to you when you get the budget. Start with this, because if you read these 9 pages, it'll make all the numbers that follow make a lot more sense. Tricia?
All right, thanks. And you know I'll keep my part fast or quick because I talk fast, so we should be whipping through this in no time. So the first section here, we have just a couple of things that I want to highlight in the budget memo. Our equalized property value did increase 5%, even after the removal of personal property, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Our net new construction increased 1.61%, which is higher than the forecast that we mentioned in June of the 1.1%. It's also the highest that we've seen since 2020 and even higher than our 10-year average of 1.46%. And as a reminder, net new construction is the only amount that our tax levy is allowed to increase other than what we can do for debt service. Our TID increment value increased. We did close TID 10 earlier this year, if you'll remember that, which was one of our larger TIDs. But the remaining TIDs are still doing very well with growth of 24%. Our equalized rate is going to reduce by 1.6%, and that's possible due to a small change in the tax levy being spread over a much larger increase in the equalized value. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too when we get to the budget summary page. And then we have a 5.4% increase in our expenditures, which is due to a very focused investment on our part in employee wages and benefits. Maggie, if you can scroll to the next on page 4. So we're applying just over $133,000 of fund balance, which is in line with what we did in what we applied in 2024. And as Justin pointed out, it kind of helps us keep our fund balance reserves high, which is very favorable in the eyes of the rating agencies. And for perspective, $133,000 represents less than 0.5% of our forecasted operating expenditures. So the budget that you guys will be receiving is definitely a balanced budget. Wages are our largest reason for the 5.4% increase in expenses that I mentioned. So we have contractually negotiated raises for our union employees, and then we have a 3% increase to the wage scale for non-represented employees. In June, I told you that our initial forecast was a 2% increase, and we would see if we could increase that depending on how the numbers from the state came in. And with the much higher net new construction than what we had originally forecasted, we were able to get to a 3% increase for the non-represented employees. Maggie, if you can scroll to the next section. Thing I want to highlight in revenues is about personal property tax aids. This is probably the biggest change that we've had for the 2025 budget. With the passage of Act 12 in 2023, we saw some increase in supplemental state aids, which we received in the 2024 budget. But Act 12 also exempted personal property from taxation. So before Act 12, our total tax levy calculation was based upon the value of real estate plus the value of personal property. With Act 12, we have to remove the value of personal property from our tax base and from our levy calculation. What this ends up doing is creating an unsustainable situation within our budget because our tax levy needs to decrease for the removal of personal property, but we had no revenue source to make up for that. The state, however, stepped in and will be providing aid to make up for that amount of taxes that we can't collect. And for us, for 2025, it'll be $1.1 million. Then when we get to the budget summary page, I'll kind of walk through the effect of how that did affect our tax levy. Next page for interest rates. So the rates are still very favorable, and we have a significant amount of money in the bank, but we budget very conservative for return on those investments. We don't want to get in a situation where we're relying on interest income to balance the budget or to help us with our missions when we could have the rates decrease, or like during COVID when the rates pretty much went almost to zero, then that affects the amount of money that we're receiving. But even with the conservative estimates, we still anticipate receiving about $893,000 more in interest in 2025. On the expense side, I'll highlight just a couple things. The wage study, we did mention this in June as well. We're still moving forward with that process, and once the budget is adopted in November, we will launch an RFP and select a consultant to start working with us in January. We would hope to have the results of that like April or May of next year in time for the 2026 budget process, and see how we can work that into the 2026 budget. Next is health insurance. On these 2 pages of the memo, there's about 5 different changes that we're going to be making to our health insurance plan. I'm not going to go through all those, but when you do read through those, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Human Resources. We can answer those. Essentially, those changes will just allow us to keep our insurance premiums flat from 2024 to 2025 with no increases. And the last highlight for the memo, there we go, is there are no rate increases for water or wastewater rates for 2025. Maggie, if you can scroll to the budget summary. There's a lot of numbers on this page, and I'm not going to take the time to go through them, but if you can scroll down a little, Maggie, to the bottom section, there's a couple things I do want to go over here. So we see in the property tax levy section, we see our total city property tax levy is going to increase from 2024 to 2025 by 1.9 million. We look right above that for debt service. Our debt service is allowed to increase by whatever it needs to in order for us to make our debt payments. So from 2024 to 25, that needs to go up 2.3 million. So if that's going to go up 2.3 million, but our total levy is only going up 1.9, that means something else needs to decrease to kind of make that math work. So if we look at the 5 items above that, for the general fund, the library, recycling, transit, and capital projects, in total, those are going to actually decrease by 400,000. Now, you might be thinking that doesn't make sense when I just told you that net new construction was the best that it's been in a long time, and that is how our levy grows. Well, this is where the impact of the personal property comes into play. So typically our growth for the levy limit calculation would have been 700,000 if we didn't have this personal property tax effect. So we would expect to see, instead of a negative 400,000, a positive 700,000. But because we had to remove that 1.1 million in personal property taxes, we had to net that against that allowable growth of 700,000. So 1.1 million minus 700,000 ends up with the $400,000 decrease. But overall, we're still going to remain whole, because essentially what we're doing is we can't collect 1.1 million in personal property taxes, but we will be getting 1.1 million from the state, which will be reflected further up on this sheet in the intergovernmental line. So you'll see a 1.1 million increase there, even though the levy had to go down by that same amount. And the last thing I wanted to cover was the equalized value tax rate. As I mentioned, that kind of decrease depends on the calculation. So the rate decrease is being driven by a small change in the tax levy, or what we see, that 1.9 million above, being spread over a much larger increase in the equalized value, which I mentioned at the beginning was 5%, which is about $230 million. So if you take a $1.9 million increase, spread that over a very large $230 million increase, it actually drives that rate down by 1.6%. So to kind of sum up the memo and the budget summary, it's all good news. We have a balanced budget. Our equalized property values have increased. Our net new construction is the best that it's been in 4 years. Our equalized tax rate is decreasing. Our employee wages are increasing by more than our initial forecast. Our health insurance premiums are remaining flat, and we have no increase in our utility rates. So I will turn it back over to Mr. Moore.
Thanks. No more graphics, just a couple of summary comments about the capital improvement program that you heard about from each of the departments this summer. So summary comments in that regard. We are going to invest, or propose to invest, just shy of $10 million in Public Works Streets program. So that's significant relative to our norm. We're going to propose to invest about $2.5 million in stormwater investments, stormwater management. That's pretty much in line with our norm. We're going to buy, some other investments are new fire engine, new ambulance, a number of new squads, a number of new public works vehicles, and that all goes into our normally planned equipment replacement program, so that we don't drive vehicles until the wheels fall off. We drive them until they need to be replaced. So we're able to do all of that on our regular schedule with this capital improvement program. I also wanted to mention that, because I know there's been some discussion about it, you will find in the Public Works Capital Improvement Program a line item for $75,000 for Veterans Park. That's a new item added in support of the county's proposed improvements at Veterans Park. The part we've signed up to donate to, at least to propose to donate to, is all the lighting that is around the perimeter of the park itself so that it ties into Main Street and Court Street, Western, and Macy. So that way we would carry the Main Street lighting through. And then lastly, I just wanted to emphasize again what Diane had mentioned during her presentation is you will see some significant additions, at least proposed for investments in market rate housing neighborhood development in terms of infrastructure investment, where we're talking about the water, wastewater, and streets to help spur growth in neighborhood investment. So with that, we're at 10 till 8. Thank you for enduring all of these presentations. Hope that you are finding this useful. Again, this will all be delivered to you on Friday. And as always, I would invite any questions tonight for the next many days. And as a reminder, in September, we always have a third city council meeting. And that third city council meeting is the third Wednesday in September. So instead of just the second and fourth Wednesday, there's also the third Wednesday in September. And we just devote that to a deep dive on whatever questions have come in from you about the budget or the capital improvement program. So with that, any questions for this evening for Tricia and me? Be glad to answer those.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council? I'm not actually seeing any. I guess I do have one question about the personal property tax. I was wondering how that's being calculated. Is that going to be a static number, or is the state going to, is it like the shared revenue where it's tied to any sort of calculation?
It's just tied to the tax rates.
Okay. So is that 1.1 million what we were anticipating, what would have been collected this year?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I'm still not seeing any other questions. So as Mr. Moore said, as questions come in, feel free to contact Mr. Moore, Ms. Davy, or department heads. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Zimmerman, second by Mr. Heisler. This is not debatable. Please proceed to vote. All right, and that passes unanimously. We are adjourned.
Yeah, we should have, you gotta bring one of them.